Hi, I'm Ed Holland.
And I'm Sue Elliott. You know, during this entire legislative session, there's been a lot of talk about moving people out of Francis Haddon Morgan Center and the possible closure. And it seems, as in the hearings I've attended and talking with legislative staff and many legislators, that this is a new experience for the state of Washington. And what I think people, they're either new to the legislative arena or they're maybe new as staff, but the Division of Developmental Disabilities has had over 25 years at least of experience in moving people successfully out of our state institutions. You had an idea early on that that came to fruition this week.
Yeah, in fact, last summer and into the fall, I did some reading and kind of my own research about what makes transitioning out of an institution successful and possible. We found that the state of Indiana had engaged in this process over a lot of years. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that really was successful is having someone, in this case it happened to be a mom who had her daughter at one institution for a long time, becoming really convinced that home and community services are really viable and great opportunities. And we had a chance to bring Nanette out to Washington State this past week to let her talk to legislators and others about her experience and the positive difference that a home and community-based setting made in her daughter's life.
The process for mentoring, family-to-family mentoring, is so critical because I can say things to family members that the professionals can or do not say, simply because I have walked that mile in their shoes. I have been there. I love my daughter every bit as much as they love their child. My daughter has significant difficulties medically and emotionally and physically, as do the folks who have moved all over the state of Indiana. I traveled throughout the state of Indiana and I took pictures of individuals with their and had their guardians and or family members there with them. And I took pictures of where they were living all over the state of Indiana with all types of ability levels. They are, and I have a survey that was done by Indiana University that talked to the families, and 90% of the families are happier with their loved ones in their home community than they ever were in the institution, even though they were happy with the institution. Things have changed, and people don't know that. Families don't realize the enormous change we've been able to make in our communities toward people with developmental disabilities.
It seems like the success they had in Indiana really hinged on the personal, individualized planning that was done and the assurance that there would be a quality follow-up as people were moving.
Before they even closed the first institution, they put together this oversight committee. This oversight committee went to the institution and talked to the team around each individual, whether that was a family member, a member of the staff from the institution, their case manager, whoever the individual wanted to have as part of their team. And they arranged that the home they were going to move into, whether it was a rental home, an apartment, they were purchasing their own home, they were, you know, there's just 1,000 different ways people have moved into different settings, but that the home would have in it these basic necessities. New staff that was going to care for them in their home went to the institution, got to know the people they were going to care for before they ever moved to their new home. Then once they moved to the home, 2 weeks later, they went back to the individual's home to look again. Okay, and were there any incident reports? What's going on in this house? You know, do you have the food available? Where's the medication? Go through, once again, the whole checklist. If there was a problem in that home, anything on that checklist, they were back in 30 days to be sure the problem was solved. Then, if there was no problem in the home, everything seemed to be running pretty smoothly, they came back in 60 days, okay? And then they started making, after that they made spot checks of homes without any announced that they were going to be there. I think that system, that initial system that was put into effect was probably the one overriding big picture item that families could look at and say, okay, there is somebody there watching out.
You know, one of the things that I think the Arc of Indiana did, through funding through their Developmental Disabilities Council and being able to hire Nanette, is that it made it personal. Because Nanette had had that experience as a family member and a mom, she was able then to talk with the other family members who were as hesitant as she was and maybe as fearful as she was in moving her daughter to the community.
I think it makes a real difference when a family that's maybe hasn't even considered this as a possibility can talk to another family member, another mom or dad, who've been through exactly that same experience and can point out to them what the possibilities are of a good life that can be created in a home and community-based setting. One of the legislators that attended the meeting with Nanette had some observations about how she thought this could really be a successful working solution in Washington State.
We are talking about a quality of life issue, much more so than potential revenue savings in this budget. You know, these are folks that deserve to have lives, and I think that they can obtain a more independent lifestyle out in their communities, and I think this can work. And you know, this is something that my brother back in Ohio has been doing for a lot of years now, and it has just been the greatest thing for him and for our entire family. So I'm very supportive of this and hope that we can move forward with this idea of trying to get folks back in their communities and back with their families. I think it's really important.
And recently, a woman who's about 40 moved from Francis Haddon Morgan Center down to Longview. And her brother is now 30 minutes away because he lives in the city of Vancouver. And one of the things the provider said was the woman had lived at the institution at Francis Haddon Morgan Center since she was 6. And the thing that she was so excited about was being able to go to McDonald's and get a hamburger. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that in the community, because you're supporting fewer people in a living environment, that people get to have choices of what they wear, when they get up, what they eat. Of course there's oversight in case you have eating disorders or anything, but for the most part people get to choose. And I think it's as simple as being able to go to McDonald's.
It just opens up opportunities for people.
That's it for this week's edition of the Olympia Insider.
And join us at Advocacy Day next week or the week after. There's a big rally. There's a lot of opportunities, and if you can't make it down here, call or email your story to your legislators.
And remember, change is made by those who show up. So join us at Advocacy Day.